G'day mates. Let's talk about Australia, a land of sunshine, deserts and some seriously strange animals. This vast and diverse country is known for its unique wildlife, stunning landscapes and rich cultural heritage. From the bustling cities to the remote outback, Australia offers a little bit of everything for everyone, whether you're an adventurer, a nature lover or just someone looking to explore new horizons. Australia has something to offer. But today we're diving into one of the quirkiest chapters of Australian history. You've got your kangaroos hopping around, koalas hugging trees, and let's not forget the wombats and platypuses. These creatures are iconic symbols of Australia, each with their own unique charm and characteristics. But then there's the emu. The emu is a bird that stands out not just because of its size, but also because of its curious nature and the role it played in a rather unusual historical event. These big, flightless birds are taller than your dad and roam around like they own the place. Emus are the second largest living birds by height, right after their relatives, the ostriches. They can run at speeds of up to 50 kilometers per hour and have a unique way of interacting with their environment. With their long necks and powerful legs, emus are truly fascinating creatures, but their story doesn't end with just being interesting birds. They have a history that is both amusing and perplexing. Back in the 1930s, they became Australia's most unexpected enemy. During this time, Australia was facing the Great Depression, and many soldiers who had returned from World War I were given land to farm. However, these new farmers faced numerous challenges, including droughts, poor soil, and, unexpectedly, emus. The emus migrated from the inland regions to the coast in search of food and water, and they found the newly established wheat farms to be a perfect feeding ground. This is the story of the Emu War, a true tale of farmers, soldiers, and some very stubborn birds. The farmers, desperate to protect their crops, sought help from the government, which sent soldiers armed with machine guns to deal with the emu problem. What followed was a series of events that seemed almost too bizarre to be true. Despite their best efforts, the soldiers found it incredibly difficult to outsmart and outmaneuver the emus. The birds proved to be surprisingly resilient and elusive, leading to a drawn-out and somewhat comical conflict. It's a story for anyone who's ever wondered how things can go so hilariously wrong. The Emu War is a perfect example of how nature can sometimes outwit human ingenuity. It's a tale that has been passed down through generations, often with a chuckle and a shake of the head. So, next time you see an emu, remember that these birds once took on the might of the Australian military and, in many ways, came out on top. It's a quirky, endearing chapter of history that reminds us of the unpredictable and often humorous side of life. Picture this: 1920s Australia, World War I is over and Aussie soldiers are coming home. The government promises them land to become farmers. These guys were tough, they'd seen it all. But farming, turns out, that was a whole new battle. The land was tough, and things were about to get even tougher, thanks to some feathered foes. At first, things seemed okay. Then farmers started noticing their crops disappearing. Something was eating their wheat and barley. And then they saw them. Huge flocks of emus, hundreds of them, gobbling down everything in sight. These emus were relentless, like feathered locusts, and the farmers were getting desperate. The farmers cried out for help, and the government, maybe a little too enthusiastic, declared war on the emus. Yes, you heard that right, war on emus. The army showed up with machine guns, ready for Australia's most bizarre battle. Now, these soldiers were war veterans, and they must have been wondering what they'd gotten themselves into. They had faced many challenges in their military careers, but nothing could have prepared them for this bizarre mission. Sent to Western Australia to deal with a massive emu infestation, they were armed with machine guns and a sense of duty. However, the emus were not your typical adversaries. These large, flightless birds were fast, agile, and surprisingly clever. The soldiers quickly realized that this was not going to be a straightforward operation. The first battle was a disaster. The soldiers set up their positions, ready to take down the emus, but as soon as they opened fire, chaos ensued. The emus scattered in all directions, making it nearly impossible to aim. The soldiers found themselves retreating in disarray, unable to keep up with the swift birds. It was a scene of utter confusion and frustration. The military operation, which was supposed to be a quick and decisive victory, turned into a humiliating debacle. They tried to shoot the emus, but the birds were surprisingly quick and dodged the bullets. The machine guns jammed. The soldiers struggled with their equipment, which seemed to malfunction at the worst possible moments. The emus, on the other hand, seemed almost to mock the soldiers with their agility and speed. It was as if the birds knew exactly how to evade capture. The soldiers' frustration grew with each failed attempt, and the emus continued to roam freely, causing havoc in the farmlands. Newspapers were filled with stories of emu victories, laughing at the army's defeat. Headlines screamed of the military's inability to handle a bunch of birds, and the public couldn't get enough of the absurdity. The press had a field day, publishing cartoons and satirical pieces that poked fun at the soldiers' misadventures. The Emu War had become a national joke, and the soldiers' efforts were ridiculed far and wide. It was a public relations nightmare for the military, and the soldiers could only watch as their reputations were tarnished by the relentless media coverage. The Emu War had become a comedy show. People gathered in parks and public spaces to reenact the battles, laughing at the sheer absurdity of it all. The soldiers, once seen as heroes, were now the butt of jokes. The emus, on the other hand, were celebrated as unlikely victors. The whole episode had taken on a life of its own, becoming a symbol of the unpredictability of life and the folly of human endeavors. The Emu War, though a failure in military terms, had succeeded in capturing the imagination of the public, turning a serious problem into a source of endless amusement. The Emu War went on for a few weeks. The soldiers did kill some emus, but the birds were mostly winning. The government, realizing how silly the whole thing was, called off the war. The soldiers went home, and the emus, fat and happy, kept on roaming. The emus had won. The Emu War might seem like a joke, but it taught us something important about emus. These birds are tough survivors, perfectly suited to Australia. They eat plants and bugs, and they help spread seeds, which is good for the environment. They're an important part of nature's balance. Emus are more than just birds in Australia. They're part of the country's story. Aboriginal Australians have always respected the emu, and you can even see them in the stars. Today, the emu is right there with the kangaroo on Australia's coat of arms. They're a symbol of Australia's unique animals and tough spirit. The Emu War might have been a military mess, but it's a funny story that Australians love to tell. It all started in 1932, when farmers in Western Australia were struggling with an overpopulation of emus. These large, flightless birds were destroying crops and causing havoc. The government decided to take action and sent soldiers armed with machine guns to deal with the problem. What followed was a series of comical and chaotic events that have since become legendary. Despite their best efforts, the soldiers found it nearly impossible to outsmart the emus. The birds were fast, agile, and surprisingly resilient. They would scatter at the sound of gunfire, making it difficult for the soldiers to hit their targets. The emus seemed to have an uncanny ability to evade capture, and the soldiers quickly realized they were in over their heads. The operation, which was supposed to be a quick fix, turned into a drawn-out battle that the emus ultimately won. It reminds us that nature is powerful, and even the best plans can be ruined by a bunch of determined emus. The Emu War is a humorous reminder of the unpredictability of life and the resilience of nature. It's a story that has been passed down through generations, often with a chuckle and a sense of pride in the emu's victory. So next time you see an emu, remember its quirky charm and tough spirit. These birds, once considered pests, have become a symbol of tenacity and the unexpected twists of history. These birds, once Australia's unlikely enemies, have earned their place in history. Today, the Emu War is commemorated with various emu-themed attractions and historical markers. It's a tale that continues to bring laughter and lessons to those who hear it. The legacy of the Emu War is a testament to the enduring power of storytelling and the unique ways in which history can unfold. Whether you're an Australian or just a visitor, The story of the Emu War is sure to leave a lasting impression.